Good afternoon, folks. I'll take the opportunity to jazz up the energy levels in this audience at this time of the day with some classic literature to begin with. And so, almost a century and a half ago, Charles Dickens said something which is quite reflective of the AI situation we have today. He said, and I quote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us." Ladies and gentlemen, that's AI as we speak right now. On the one hand, AI promises a beautiful, bold future, free of suffering and disease, where every mother can finally hope that their child can afford an education. A future of abundance, a future without scarcity. And on the other hand, there's risks and fears. Fears of joblessness. Fears that the bots are going to come for our extinction and doom. And nations are fearing that they're going to be left behind in this race for AI supremacy. And so they want national control. And why is that national control so crucial? First, as Ranjit said a few minutes ago, AI is this once in many generations opportunity to create economic advantage and productivity growth. Second, countries of the world want to build AIs which are close to their culture, to their ethos and to the pathos. And thirdly, countries of the world want to build, and that's the theme of the forum today, countries of the world want to build resilient, localized AI supply chains that are so central to national sovereignty. Now, training got us here at this beautiful moment, and it's still racing ahead with many new innovations, with large world models. But really, where AI is going to touch households and lives and economies and factories and warehouses, that's where the true economic advantage will appear. And that advantage is going to come with AI inference. So if training built the AI brain, inference is going to help that brain how to speak. And sovereign inference then is going to let it speak to you, to the soil, to the country. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ahmed Ijaz, and I'm driving sales and partnerships for MemryX. It's a US AI chip startup, but increasingly now a Saudi company, and focused on building sovereign inference stack all the way from the edge to the data center. Let's get rolling. We have a very spicy agenda in front of us. Now, as a first thing, we can see that the AI inference supercycle is here. But the speed and the velocity with which this inference supercycle is growing is probably something few expect. In fact, as Jensen Huang said in a recent podcast, AI inference or inference compute per query is going to grow by 1 billion times. And no wonder why 95% or more IT leaders are planning to use AI agents in the next 24 months. If you look at the chart on the left, that shows how AI inference is going to be more than half of AI compute in data centers by 2030. And so the takeaway is that inference, which is deterministic, which is predictable, and which can work at a scale without breaking the bank, is and has to be a national priority. And that's the strategic question for Saudi Arabia. Now, that's all good. We have a super cycle going on, but where's the conflict? What's the problem? And that's a memory war. Because chips are waiting for data while data is stuck with memory. And so, as Bill Clinton would probably say, it's the memory, stupid. If you see the chart on the left-hand side, this UC Berkeley research shows how compute technology has progressed like 60,000 times over the last 2 decades, whereas memory has barely progressed 30 to 100 times. And that kind of creates a glaring gap between compute and memory. And even the most advanced HBM3Es plateau at about 750 tokens a second, which means that your chips are still waiting for data. And so the more important thing is, the takeaway is that a winning architecture has to reduce the data movement, bring the memory closer, and manage this in a way where you can deliver this inference at low latency, at big capacities, with the right economics. And MemryX is solving that exact same problem all the way from the edge to the data center. Now, AI inference is also not one market. It spans all the way from edge to your regional data centers to your national hyperscale data centers. And so it depends on the use case, if it's going to be about low latency, if it's going to be about the decision points, about the scale, the centralization and decentralization decisions, where should the data reside, can the data go somewhere? And so it depends on the use case. So for example, a remote crane automation use case at a port that I worked on would probably need a less than 15 milliseconds latency to work. Or a real-time worker safety use case that we are right now working on needs that kind of low latency, and the data needs to stay local. And that's why the edge is paramount. But then there are other use cases like traffic management across cities, and those need regional data centers. And then there are problems which have to do with a humane level national data center. These could do with Arabic language models, with national diagnostic systems, with AI economic planning. The takeaway for you is that sovereign inference is going to be broken unless each of these 3 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are put together. And each one of these are equally important. Now, I remember with a great deal of fondness how at the FII a few months ago, the MCIT minister, His Excellency Abdullah Sawaha, said something really interesting. He said that large models and the consumer-centric innovation, maybe the Silicon Valley and the West has taken that with speed. But what's the ticket to Saudi's AI supremacy has to be industrial agentic AI. His words. And what that means is, and we ran some analysis to show how which sectors in Saudi are the ripest adoption potential bets for this industrial and agentic AI. And you can see that a few like energy, manufacturing, and logistics are already powering ahead. They're powerhouses. And then on the frontier, you have healthcare, finance, construction, and then even some new economy sectors like retail and tourism are joining the club. Across these industrial sectors, agents and agentic AI is going to need to make autonomous decisions for perception, for planning, for verification, for replanning. All of those decision points are a force multiplier for inference. And so that means that if Saudi has to win at the industrial AI aspiration, it better build the right sovereign inference stack that can deliver on that incredible demand and opportunity. Now, that's where MemryX comes into the picture. We are a provider of, right now, production-grade edge AI inference accelerator called MX3. MX3 right now is 10 times advantage in terms of performance per watt compared to mainstream GPUs without naming names for select computer vision use cases. We operate at a sub 10 watts power. And that kind of gives us the price per performance advantage. In addition, we have our architecture, our software platform that lends to models being used without any refactoring, any retraining, any re-optimization. And that's why the BDTI independent evaluation says the MemryX software and hardware platform simply works. It's because you don't need months, but just days and less than days in order to get going with this MX3 accelerator. MemryX is now operational in Saudi Arabia since last year, and we are very vigorously working with our partners and our national and strategic customers in the country. But then MX3, if that's something that delivers deterministic inference at the edge, our breakthrough innovation MX4 delivers the same innovation at a data center scale. And how does that make it work? With a few breakthrough innovations. Number one, what we do is, using 3D hybrid bonding, we equip each tile in the compute with its own 3D memory. So imagine a DRAM stack on top of a tile, and imagine a nanometer scale access to memory in a vertical fashion, as compared to a horizontal millimeter grade access to memory, which is with other architectures. And that kind of delivers the low latency, but also it provides the DRAM kind of capacity with the vertical 3D memory technology. And that brings the two beautiful worlds together. You could see the video on the right-hand side describing that phenomenon for a bit. Secondly, our architecture is controllerless, which means that each tile, again, has its own memory, and it doesn't have to contend with a global bus and resources. Thirdly, we are asynchronous by design, which means, again, that each tile can get to have its own fitted back pressure, and that really helps us scale without a clock skew, which typically plagues other architectures where you use synchronous 2D arrays. And without naming names, that kind of puts you in a Goldilocks position. You get the benefit of latency and ultra low latency, but also you get the capacity advantage and the bandwidth advantage that's typically right now not being provided. And so you get Grok-like latency, and you get GPU-like capacity, and you bring together the cost per token, and the economics work just right. Now, we've spoken during the day about the AI stack and the cake. MemryX is very proud to take a vision where we are going to radically have a made-in-Saudi end-to-end sovereign inference stack. What that means is all the way from the bottom, where we are ramping up our local Saudi engineering team for R&D, to our Series B investment from a sovereign Saudi investor, we are taking a sovereign-first approach to building the stack. In terms of infrastructure, our leader, Giovanni, is here. We're working closely with infrastructure providers who have a vision for Make in Saudi so that we can provide the infrastructure that's also sovereign. We are then partnering with companies, and we have some guests over here from national systems integrators and makers of models and software applications, including Elm. And so, again, the idea is to leverage an end-to-end partner stack and organic stack that's made in Saudi. Now, I'd like to share some thoughts from our experience, and we are rapidly accumulating this experience. First of all, I think in the language that it has to be, and Ali Siddiqui would probably be in a position to comment on it, as he said that Humane is a full end-to-end stack, it includes everything. I think we need to have a vernacular and a language which puts sovereign inference as a digital infrastructure priority, number one. Number two, I appreciate the national fever with POCs. POCs are great, but we need to rapidly, because the boat's sailing, and we need to put the focus increasingly on operational metrics like safety, uptime, yield, etc. Thirdly, if His Excellency Abdullah Sawaha's vision, if we go by that, and we have to build an industrial AI, the industrial AI has to have the edge inference as a necessary part of the equation. Not so much the situation today, but we are growing that. And so ideally, the best approach would be to start on the edge and move to the data center. And that's the approach that we'd like to recommend. A hybrid approach, starting with an edge-first approach. Fourthly, as they say, if you have to optimize for one KPI with sovereign inference, what would that be? And we think from our experience that it can boil down very easily to performance per watt. It breaks down the power, the business case, the TCO, the latency, and everything is brought together into one KPI, which is performance per watt. And then lastly, something that's very close to the sovereignty agenda, we think, again, it's good to buy boxes, it's good to buy end-to-end solutions, but Saudi is now mature and needs to start investing into customized workloads roadmaps. So work with your partners on roadmaps, investing with them for Saudi-specific workloads, invest into design cycles, and put some skin in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to close now. And the main slogan on my mind for today is, we have a 12 to 18 months opportunity to build a sovereign inference stack of Saudi Arabia. Training has brought us to this beautiful point. Inference is going to take us there. It's going to create that economic advantage that we seek. And so the moment is now. The future is deterministic. Thank you very much, gents and ladies.